21 years old. So you basically started your career with them.
Turned out to be a gorgeous package that we're quite proud of. We did have some primitive testing ways with tanks out in the dirt.
Hello and welcome to our very first episode of Crownsmen Energy. Today we are joined by Greg Sanchez. He is the production foreman at PowerZone Equipment. But before we get started, we would like to thank all our sponsors. We are sponsored by Lamson International. They are a third-generation family-owned and operated heavy lift and heavy haul construction company with branch offices located throughout North America, Canada, and Australia. Lamson International offers conventional crane rental, heavy transportation, project engineering, and customized rigging, steel and timber mat rental, as well as marine and manufacturing services. They were founded in 1946 by Neil and Billy Jane Lamson. The company is in their 73rd year of doing business. You can find out more at lamsoncrane.com. We're also sponsored by Whipware. Whipware's photo analysis software systems help industries from mining, quarries, aggregate, forestry, agriculture, coal, and explosives remove the need to use manual sieving techniques. Their technologies have saved clients millions in energy costs, maintenance costs, process optimization, quality control, lost time injuries, equipment downtime, and quantitative decisions. You can find out more at whipware.com. Now let's get on with Crownsmen Energy Episode 1.
Welcome to Crownsmen Energy. I'm your host, Jared Downey. You'll notice that our background is very similar to the Crownsmen show. It is the same background. This is just focused on more oil, gas, renewable energy, and the technology within the energy industry. So welcome to the show. And for our first guest on Crownsmen Energy, we're featuring PowerZone. And we have the production foreman for PowerZone, Greg Sanchez. Greg, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So how long have you been with PowerZone?
I've been with PowerZone a little over 13 years now. So I started when I was 21 years old, and been with them ever since. So
21 years old. So you basically started your career with them.
Yes, I've basically my whole adult career been with
PowerZone. I'm guessing at 21 you didn't start as the production foreman?
I did not. I actually started as a welder fabricator. So the PowerZone is actually located not too far from my hometown. And I went to tech school to learn how to be a welder fabricator and a diesel mechanic, and applied for a job here as a welder fabricator. That's what they had open, and I got that, and that's where I started. And then I moved on to being a mechanic for a little while for them, and back to a welder fabricator. And then I was lead of the welding and fabricating department and the finishing department, and then just kind of worked my way into being production foreman. So.
Yeah, we on the show today, we're going to dig into some of the projects with PowerZone. We had Don Taves, the president of PowerZone, on over a year ago now, I think, and we just walked through sort of the macro of what PowerZone is, what they do, how they deal with customers, some of their reach, things like that. But today and the reason you're on the show is because I really want to dig into some of the projects. It's quite unique, some of them, and their capabilities that PowerZone offers. And so I kind of just wanted to go in, before we dig into the actual projects, I want to talk a little bit just about the capabilities, because I know PowerZone. I've been to the site, and they have a test facility which is unique for a company that's selling primarily used and rebuilt pumps and motors and engines and everything like that. But how long ago did that test facility come into play?
So we've always tested not all of our packages. We didn't have the capabilities of testing everything. But we did have some primitive testing ways with tanks out in the dirt and underground. As the years went on, we actually needed to have a better facility. So in 2012, we ended up building our test facility. We built a new addition onto the building. It's actually a separate building by about 40 feet it's separated. But we built a new building, and we call that our BPT facility, which is blast, paint, and test. And the main focus was testing. So that's what kind of kicked off the project, and we decided if we're building, let's just build a entire facility for our blast paint and testing. So.
And what is the when you say testing? I mean, I'm not a pump expert. Anybody who watches the show knows that. But so, what is when you're testing a pump or a whole set of equipment? What are you actually doing?
So there's a lot of different tests we perform. So our most basic test is what we call a function test. And that's just to make sure the thing functions and operates and nothing fails or anything like that during the testing phase. So if we rebuild a pump, say a PD pump, a positive displacement pump, we a lot of times will set it up and just test for functionality. Other tests we do is we actually can go through and get a test curve built out of the performance of the package. So we actually get several points of flows and pressures that it's putting out, and we could make a test curve for our customers off of that. And a lot of times we'll do that mostly with centrifugal packages. PD packages, we do a little bit of that, but the test curve is most important on these centrifugal packages we build.
That must, I know we're going to focus on the project side, but that must really make a difference to the customers, because, I mean, if in the used equipment world and the rebuild world, to actually be able to show all that must add a huge value. Are you a part of, or do you ever do like the actual, when people come to show the testing and tour the facility and that, are you ever a part of that?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, we have a test crew, and we have a test foreman that kind of controls the entire operation out there. But most of our guys, our engineers, are heavily involved with testing. I mean, we feel like that's one of the most important parts of our business, is being able to actually prove the functionality and the performance of our equipment. So we can cover warranty under that. We know it performed well. We know it will last in the field, and we're able to cover it under warranty because of our testing facility. So I would say, yeah, a lot of people are heavily involved with testing. Engineers, project managers, pretty much everyone that has anything to do with the end result of the project has been in the test facility at one point or another.
And then just to quickly touch on it too, I mean, the fabricating facility, your engineering tools you use, just for the audience, because once we get into these projects, I think I mean, there are going to be presidents of companies, engineers watching this, and just to give sort of that snapshot of these projects that we're highlighting, what the capabilities are behind the projects. So can you give us a sort of an idea of what the fabricating facility is, the engineering tools you use for these projects?
Yeah, absolutely. So our fabricating facility, quite familiar with that. Like I said, I started here as a welder fabricator. That's kind of where my passion's at. So we currently have 4 full-time welders, and we have several other guys that we could substitute in from different departments when our welding and fabricating demands go up. We have guys that are certified in several different aspects as far as B31.3 or piping. We got guys that can pass X-ray. We have a good group of individuals that make up that department. As far as our capabilities, we could fabricate anything from small. We fabricated anything from small 13 horsepower little engine-driven units all the way up to 50 to 150 horsepower packages. So We are able to meet API standards, build API spec skids, a lot of tail roll skids, a lot of our guards, fuel tanks, things like that are all fabricated in-house, designed and fabricated in-house.
Right. I'm glad you. It's a nice segue because you mentioned the tail roll skids, which, interestingly enough, are not in Australia. And one of the projects we're going to highlight is you did some work for a horizontal boring company, and I mean, it was actually a very strange project for me to hear about. I know you weren't involved in the actual installation, but it was actually a fiber optic cable from Oregon to Australia, and you were supplying a unit on the Australian side. Do I have that right?
Yes, we did a project for a company out of Australia. So they actually sourced a package. It was a used package in West Texas. They sourced it by themselves, which normally we're able to do that. We source a lot of packages for people, but they sourced it themselves, and then they reached out to us to see if we could inspect the unit and rebuild the unit for them. So they do horizontal boring, and yes, one of their projects was boring to bring fiber optic cable from the United States to Australia. We have a much better infrastructure than they do, so they were needing to get that over to them, I guess. So that was one of the projects they did with this package. Not the only project, they do several other boring projects with that package, but that was one of the main reasons they ordered that from us. So like I said, they sourced the package. They called us to inspect it. We went down to West Texas. We inspected the package. We basically went over everything that it needed and what it needed to be rebuilt. Quoted them. They liked us. They decided to go with us, and we got the job. So mentioning the tail roll thing, a lot of our tail roll skid. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask just a clarification. Now, did you rebuild that in Texas, or did that come back to your Colorado facility?
It came back to our Colorado facility, and we ended up rebuilding it here.
Oh, I see. Sorry to interrupt you on the tail.
No problem.
The tail rolls. So with the tail rolls that you had to basically do a customization on that?
Yeah. So here in the United States, maybe up in Canada, they do a lot of tail roll type skids, is what they call them, and they have big winch trucks with trailers, or without trailers, just a big winch truck that they're able to back up to these units and roll them or winch them onto the truck and move them around that way. Well, in Australia, they don't really have tail roll units that we know of. So they wanted a solution to be able to load and unload this pump package without having to rent a crane or buy a tail roll system. So they wanted us to come up with a solution on how they could load it and unload it. So the package weighed roughly 58,000 pounds, I think. And we designed a hydraulic lifting leg system to where it had an engine and a hydraulic pump. So it was all self-contained, and you were able to lift the entire unit up with 4 hydraulic lifting legs, back your trailer under it, and set it down on the trailer and be able to move it that way.
Wow. So when you talk about, so you designed it, you did everything on that, and then for the engine itself and the pump, what were those units? Just to break down, actually what went into a rebuild like this? What were the units specifically? Timeline on how long a project like this takes from the time you go to inspect it to the time it actually goes out the door, installing the hydraulic legs and everything like that.
So that project was probably around a 20-week project. They weren't in a huge hurry for it. So between going down to West Texas, inspecting the package, and by the time it left, it was probably around 20 weeks. Projects like that vary as far as what we quote on lead time. We could probably get a project like that down in the 6 to 8 week mark if we needed to. So it was an engine driven PZ9 positive displacement pump. and it had a D398 cat on there. The engine was in pretty rough shape, and the pump was as well. So we completely went through both units. We went through the pump and did a complete rebuild on the pump, and we went through the entire engine and did a complete rebuild on the entire engine. So we had them all down to basic core parts and cleaned everything up and put new components back in it and had them completely rebuilt. We modified the skid, like I said, to have the lifting legs and blasted everything down to white metal finish and repainted everything, reassembled everything, and turned out to be a gorgeous package that we're quite proud of.
Yeah, no, it is. I was looking at the pictures of it earlier. The something like that, those hydraulic lifts, do you have you done any of more of those since then? Has anybody seen that and went, well, that's handy?
We actually haven't. We thought it would kind of take off, but
Yeah.
the tail roll thing it's very effective, and a lot of people are so
Yeah.
used to doing that, and they already have the trucks in place and things like that. That a lot of times that's just what they want. It's kind of set in your ways a little bit, but it's a great option. It really is for people that don't have that setup, or just are looking for a different way around it. It's a very good option for them.
Yeah, very interesting. I want to move into another project that PowerZone did. We're kind of showing the global snapshot right now, which was actually not, we didn't really plan that out, but it is kind of handy. You did another project, and I think there's actually some articles on PowerZone's website about it. It's quite interesting. You did a pump. I think it went to Ghana. I should have the note. Yes, it went to Ghana in Africa. Can you talk a little bit about that project? Because that the one where there was actually an emergency element where I think they were getting water into the mine shaft or something like that.
So yeah, we actually did do a project that went to Ghana, Africa, into a gold mine, and it's used for dewatering. So basically, when you're down in the earth, there's water that you have to get rid of. So one of their pumps went down and basically was filling the mine shaft with water. It doesn't fill it immediately; it takes days to fill the mine shaft. But I don't remember exactly the lead time, but it was not a very long lead time project. I mean, it was one of those where we really had to kick it and get it done, because their mine was filling up with water. So we were able to get that project done and out in less than 2 weeks, and it was a significant package and project. And we flew guys to Ghana to do the install and basically finish the all-around package. We're quite proud of that one as well. It was a crazy time around here, and I can't hardly believe we got it done in that time frame. So.
That's pretty amazing. 2 weeks for anything. Was that pump? Well, let's go. What kind of unit was it? And then let's go into condition and what actually had to go into getting that ready in 2 weeks.
So I don't remember exactly the model number of the pump, but it was a big centrifugal pump, and it was a used surplus pump. So we did not have to rebuild that pump, but we had to build a pump packaged with an electric motor. So we had to build the skid, we had to design the skid, we had to get the skid milled, blasting, painting, assembly, basically all of the above, besides rebuilding the pump to get it ready for shipment.
That's amazing. 2 weeks. That's in the middle of. Obviously there was other projects going. Sort of how was that able to be mobilized? Just from a logistical standpoint, again, I've been to the facility, so I know that would have been quite an undertaking to put that whole product together in a matter of 2 weeks and then get it out to Africa.
It absolutely was, and I think one of the things that sets us apart is PowerZone was built on things like that. we're very pliable. We're able to go in several different directions. The other advantage we have is we have a tremendous amount of pumps and that meet different requirements in stock, ready to go a lot of times. Like this pump, for instance, it was ready to go. It met the requirements, and we were able to package that relatively quickly because we had the pump on hand.
And then the install, like for an install on a project like that, and you didn't actually go to do the install, is that right?
No, one of our techs did. So
Yeah. What is it? Are you sort of privy to the information of how long that would take from the time it left the U.S. to Ghana to actually being actually operational? Do you know what that timeline was?
I don't exactly remember what it was, but it takes a while to get stuff across the ocean and over there. I would say it would be another 2 to 3 weeks before we were over there installing the package.
Yeah. For perspective, if you had to order a new pump, or if you didn't have that pump in stock, that other project where you said would be 6 to 8 weeks on a rush, and it took 20 weeks because the customer wasn't in a rush. So 2 weeks out the door it's actually unbelievable. We're going to show some pictures too.
Right,
There's some neat pictures of the team over there.
Perfect. For instance, if we didn't have that pump in stock, and for say no one else had that pump in stock and they had to order a new pump, then just the pump manufacturing part of it could take 22 weeks, just manufacturing the pump. So we're able to provide a solution very quickly because we had the pump in stock. So
yeah, it's great. It's really impressive. I want to move on to another project highlight, and this one's actually specific to the energy sector. It's on an it's on a pipeline, and I'm going to stumble through it, and then you can correct everything I get wrong. I think that's the Sulzer one. It's with a 25,000 horsepower motor on it. First, let's start off with the pump. What is this unit that was going? I think it was out of Oklahoma. Is that right?
Yep. So it actually is a 5,250 horsepower unit, and it was a 12 by 12 by 15 Sulzer. So 12-inch inlet, 12-inch outlet, and 15-inch impellers. So it was a 12 by 12 by 15, and it was designed to move oil down the pipeline, basically. 5,250 horsepower electric driven package. So that's one of the highest individual horsepower packages we've ever designed and built. It did meet API standards as far as an API skid. The package is running great. It turned out to be a beautiful pump package. Simple Plan 11 flush plan on there with a Plan 65 leak detection. So if the seal's leaking, it goes into seal pots to tell you that it's got a leaky seal without contaminating soil or anything around by leaking out onto the ground.
I want to dig into this project a little bit more. So this pump, now this is obviously on a pipeline. You can't have oil leaking onto the ground. It's got to fit standards. What goes into this specific type of pump? It's on U.S. soil. It's coming from your facility. What does it take to get a pump like this ready for service?
So a pump like this, basically, we need to meet the customer's requirements and standards. So they approach us with flows and pressures and what they will be pumping. And we look through our database and look through our inventory to see if we have a pump that will actually meet those standards. Well, it turns out we did have the pump that would meet their standards. We were able to bring the pump in, do an inspection on it. Looked like it was going to be a good candidate for a rebuild. So we completely tore down the pump, rebuilt the entire pump. We ordered a new 5,250 horsepower motor, and our engineers basically at that point, once we have our two components picked out, we're able to design a skid that meets their standards, which would be an API 610 skid. and able to design the skid, and then it goes through the fabricating process, and then the milling process, which we mill all our API skids, so our heights and our flatness meets that standard. And then at that point, the assembly starts: blasting, painting, and assembly. So quite a bit goes into a package like that. On the front lines, as far as the quoting and meeting their specs and finding stuff that will fill their needs, there's a lot involved there with our sales department. And then as far as the production side, it was a big project for us, but one we did really well on. So.
What would the timeline be on this with you're actually ordering a new motor, you're rebuilding the pump itself? Do you remember how long this one took to be from order to actually getting out the door?
Yeah, it was an 18 to 20 week lead time on that unit. And we met that lead time. A lot of times we'll say 18 to 20 weeks just because when we're quoting things, we don't completely know if our vendors will be able to get us things in time. But we always try to shoot for the early deadline. It doesn't always happen, but we were able to get this one out in the 18 to 20 weeks.
Is that fairly standard? Like, if you were just to guess, I mean, how many pumps go out the door, like the one going to Ghana in 2 weeks, or the one that takes 20 weeks from inspection time in Texas? Is that range? Is there a consistency, or is it pretty much unique to every pump and every product?
All over the board. I mean, a lot of things that play into it is availability of parts and equipment. Also, our workload. If we have a tremendous amount of workload in front of someone, we can't quote as aggressive of lead time as we would like. But a lot of times we'll figure out how to get things done quicker than the next guy. We pride ourselves on being able to provide a solution quickly. So I would say it's really all over the board. I mean, we've had quite a few packages that we've got out very quickly, but a lot of our big pipeline packages take that 16 to 20 weeks, somewhere in there.
Right. I want to move in. I want to move a little more into the innovation and adapting to the market. Like any business, Power Zone is required to. And how much of, obviously when you need to put a hydraulic lift system on a pump, that you're having to adapt and innovate there. How much of the methods, the way that you do things, the way the projects go, how much of that is reacting to a customer's demand, or is it planned out? For instance, the test facility, that probably wasn't built because there was a one specific order. There was probably a demand for the market. Can you kind of judge over the last few years sort of what those demand shifts have been, and sort of what, if it's a lot of it is you seeing the demand, or you how would I say it, sort of having the foresight to see it coming, or that a customer's coming to you and you adapt as it comes?
Absolutely. In my 13 and a half years here, it has changed drastically. When I first started, I would say 80% of our packages were diesel driven PD pump packages. I think about 15% were electric driven centrifugal packages. The other 5% is just miscellaneous stuff that was fit in there. I think that's completely swapped. I think we probably do about 80% electric driven centrifugals now. Maybe not quite that high, but it's taken a complete turn. I don't know exactly why. I think maybe emissions play a lot to do with that. Infrastructure, people are obviously getting electric power in places they didn't used to. And also our inventory of centrifugal pumps it's amazing. We have thousands of pumps in stocks and hundreds of centrifugal pumps in stock. So a lot of times we're able to cater to those guys because we have the pump that matches their hydraulic needs.
Yeah. Then when you go into, I mean, you have these projects that you do. Is there anything that sort of stands out to you that you got the order sheet? I mean, obviously you're not on the actual sales end, and so at some point you're getting a piece of paper handed in front of you and say, we need to do this. Have there been any projects you went, I don't know if we're going to actually hit that target? If we're going to be able to deliver this?
Yeah, there's several in mind that are fairly intimidating. Maybe not as far as work scope, but lead times. Lead times is one that really plays into that. The project, the project is gone, and we talked about the lead time was extremely aggressive, and we all kind of scratch our heads thinking, man, I hope we can do this. Well, we did it. We nailed it. There was another MA95 package I could think of that it was a top mount electric motor pump package, and the customer needed it in 1 week. It's not a huge package; it's 95 horsepower, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. We had to design the top mount skid. We had to obviously get material in. It had piping, it had controls. We had to completely design it, fabricate it, blast it, paint it, assemble it in 1 week lead time. And I believe we even tested that pump package in a week lead time. So that's one that I think of often, where it was just extremely aggressive lead times, but it was one that we were able to take on, and we nailed it, and the customer was extremely happy. And like I said earlier, that's what's kind of made PowerZone PowerZone. We're very pliable. We can cater to these customers as much as possible.
I want to flip the script on you a little bit on the next question, because I was actually just having a conversation with another guest that's going to be coming on the show in the energy sector. And he mentioned in the pre-interview that a lot of their mistakes were made when times were good, and that really struck me, because he said, you think you know everything, and then when times are tough, you sort of dig down. And so I have to ask: has there been any projects that you thought were going to be easy, but that when you open it up, it had a whole new set of challenges you weren't ready for?
Yeah, there's always those projects. We actually recently just went through one that it's in our wheelhouse. It absolutely is something we can nail. We did nail it, but it turns out it was a very simple. I say very simple on the actual manufacturing side of things. It was simple. It was a pump package with two small single stage centrifugal pumps with a lot of piping and some controls. It sounds simple. It looks simple. We got into the project, and the specs and standards that we had to meet and the mountain of paperwork is what made it quite challenging. We actually anticipated having around 200 to 400 hours of engineering and project management time into the project, and we ended up having around 2,000 hours of that. And a lot of that was just correspondence with the customer and meeting specs and standards, throughout the entire project. It was a package that we had to do all our pipe welding under a standard and meet X-ray, and I think it ended up being around 300 pipe welds. Which is we could nail that. That's not a problem. It was just a lot of specs went into that package, and took up a tremendous amount of our project management time, for sure.
So on a project like that, going back to lead time is, when we had Dawn on the show before, lead time was such a key component, especially sometimes making the choice between new or used, because new can have a much longer lead time. But also with the used, there's some customization that you can do. adapting, if they can get close to their specifications, maybe it's a little more available. So on a project like that, where you run into more hours than you think, for what the expectation was to get it out the door to when it actually went out the door. I mean, we've talked a lot about success, but of course companies have challenges. That's part of business. How close do you come to hitting the target on something like that? That's project.
That project, we actually still met a deadline. I was quite surprised myself, actually. I hate to say that, but seeing this challenge ahead of us, it was kind of more brought to our attention after the fact of quoting and getting the job. Even it was very vague up front, so we quoted it like we would a normal package, and then it kind of came out that all these standards had to be met. So we had quite a challenge in front of us, but there was actually 3 of these little pump packages for the same project. So they kind of had a staggered time that they had to leave our facility, and we met all 3 deadlines. I was pretty proud of that as well, because it was quite the undertaking to finish that project in the lead time that they wanted, and we were able to make our customer happy. So.
That must feel good, hey? It must really actually feel good when you get that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
that's why we do
it.
And
it's a team effort. I mean, on any given one of these projects, just as we wrap up here, and I think anybody watching this episode or any of the companies that are featured on our show, I mean, they understand that there's so many moving parts. It's unbelievable sometimes. I mean, on any given project, how many people are involved on just these units?
We currently have 33 employees here, and a project like that, I would say 20 to 25 individuals had a hand in that. Anything from painters and blasters and welders, fabricators and project managers and engineers and sales team, and even our people that are accounting individuals, and everyone kind of has a hand in it. And we couldn't actually get these projects done the way we do without our team. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of people that are able to bounce around between departments and help out in other ways. And our team is what makes up this company. It's pretty tremendous, the amount of skills and knowledge that we have in our facility, all the way from the top down, and how we're able to utilize those in different aspects of the company.
I've got to know you and I actually don't know each other very well, but I've got to know Don and Carson and spoke with Trevor a little bit. Brandon on the team, and there's you have a very strong team there, and I've always been impressed. And it's a hard thing to explain, if I'm trying, but with Power Zone, there's a very humble confidence that as a company, you can tell that you can do the job and even go outside the box when you need to get something done. But it's we've done a lot of work with Power Zone, but there's always a humility behind it that I think probably gives customers a lot of confidence in you. And walking through these projects, it's pretty clear the abilities of Power Zone to actually deliver on these projects. So I think it is definitely something to be proud of.
Yeah, I'm extremely proud to be a part of this team, and the president, Don, he's definitely a yes man.
Yes.
And he's turned all of us into that. Like I said, Power Zone was built on our pliability and our being able to meet demands, and that starts at the top down. I mean, it's amazing what we can do when we work together as a team, and we accomplish a lot of amazing feats for being a relatively small company.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Greg, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it. I've wanted to, from seeing all these projects Power Zone has done, I've wanted to do one of these episodes with someone from your team for a long time. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show, talk about them, put all these, highlight them, get them all together. I know you're very busy trying to run the team, so I appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we get you back soon at some point.
That would be great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, everyone, thank you for watching our first episode of Crownsmen Energy. Of course, it is a spin-off of the Crownsmen Show. It's just a little more directed, but of course, in this episode, like so much in heavy industry, we ended up talking still about mining. We talked about fiber optic cable, but we got in some pipeline talk as well. And it really genuinely is good to have Power Zone back on the show. It's been a while. We really got good feedback on the last episode. That one was more macro. This one digs more into the specific projects. So I hope you enjoyed it. And please subscribe. And Gowdy will tell you all the other ways you can get involved in the Crownsmen Show, Crownsmen Energy. We also have a new show in partnership with CIM called Mining Now. So we've got lots to watch, lots to follow, and we hope you stay with us. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe and follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. Also, if you would like to help support the production of the show, please head on over to crownsmen.com/donations. We've actually set up 2 initial donation options, the $5 monthly subscription option and the support heavy industry one-time donation. These are all through PayPal, so super, super safe. Again, that's crownsmen.com/donations. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next episode.